Hello and welcome to this webinar on the PANACEA Toolkit as an integrated solution to improve cybersecurity in healthcare. My name is Tiffany Parker from Trust IT, and it is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sabina Magalini from the Sacro Cuore University and Gemelli Hospital. Sabina is a senior surgeon, so she'll be sharing with us this morning her personal views as a doctor on cybersecurity. So the floor is yours, Sabina. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to all of you. My name is Sabina Magalini. I am a practicing physician and practically a surgeon. And as the project coordinator, I have tried to focus the project's objectives towards the applicability and the usefulness for the healthcare sector. I think we have succeeded in this, and today I'm happy to show you what we have produced. Just 2 words on during this pandemic, I realized how important it is to be prepared to face a situation where the probability of cyber attacks suddenly rises. PANACEA is useful especially for this because it prepares people's systems and hospital organizations so that the attacks will not cause the interruption of the clinical activities. We are in the last year of our project now, and once the project is concluded, we are thinking to carry on with the consortium. And today, we are especially interested on the idea you have about this. And so I want to thank you very much for the time you will be dedicating to us.
Thank you very much, Sabina. I think a very poignant point there about the pandemic and how it's really put in the spotlight all of these issues around healthcare, and especially also the vulnerability of a lot of healthcare systems around the world. Okay, well now I'm just going to stop sharing this one and I'll go back to this one because we're going to launch our first poll. So we're asking everybody to indicate what kind of stakeholder group they belong to. Rita, if you'd like to launch the first poll, please. This is Rita Giuffrida, my colleague from Trust IT. Thanks very much, Rita. Okay. So we're asking you what type of organization you belong to, hospitals or other healthcare organizations, academia, and is that a technical research domain, or academia, other research domain, industry, are you a provider of healthcare specific solutions, or industry but non-healthcare specific, or do you belong to some other category? Okay, we're trying throughout this webinar, especially in the last session, we'll be doing a series of live polls. So we thank you for being interactive with us and sharing your views. We'll just hold on for a few more seconds. We've got a high percentage of votes. Rita, I would suggest we stop now the poll and share the results. Okay, so it actually looks as if we've got the hospitals most represented in this ecosystem. So thank you for that, Rita. I'm going to now stop sharing my screen and we'll move on to our expert panel discussion, where we have some of Europe's top experts in the field from different organizations bringing their expertise from various fields. First up, we have Tanos Droukakis from the European Union's Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA. So I'll just pass the floor now to him. Just bear with me while I share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so the floor is yours, Tanos. Thank you very much for being here and for sharing your expertise this morning.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and I would like to thank you for the invitation to today's workshop. I'm very happy to be representing the EU Agency for Cybersecurity to be discussing this very interesting topic of procurement and its link to cybersecurity in healthcare providers. Because this is a topic that, in fact, the EU Agency for Cybersecurity has been quite active on. If we can move to the next slide. So as you can see, even though we've been doing a lot of work on cybersecurity in healthcare for a number of years, in fact, over the past 2 years, we've been focusing primarily on aspects related to procurement and its link to cybersecurity objectives. So in February of 2020, ENISA published a report on procurement guidelines for cybersecurity in hospitals, which basically provided a set of good practices and guidelines for hospitals in order to support them in addressing cybersecurity objectives throughout the procurement process. Next, in January of 2021, we published a follow-up report which focused specifically on one type of procurement which relates to cloud services in support of healthcare organizations. And a few weeks ago, we published an online tool, which is basically our report of February 2020 in the form of an online tool, which allows for quite easy filtering, let's say, of the different parameters so that hospitals can actually identify the good practice most relevant to them. Now, it's very important to note that this topic is actually quite significant because of its link with security by design principles. So whenever a hospital procures something, it introduces change in its ICT environment with potentially cybersecurity obligations. So it makes the most sense to address these cybersecurity considerations in advance. So if we move to the next stage, to the next slide, what we can see is that procurement is actually not a static thing. We view it from a life cycle perspective. So quite often we tend to do the mistake of saying, okay, procurement is all about technical specifications in the RFP. This is by no means the case. So what we did was we split the procurement life cycle in 3 distinct phases. The first is the planning phase. So you identify a need for procuring a product or service. What do you need to do to prepare for it? The second is the sourcing phase. Here we go into the details of the RFP and the SLA and so on. And we also have the manage phase, which is everything from the point of procuring a product or service to its decommissioning, which again is a very, very important aspect of this life cycle. So what this report does, in the next slide, you will see, first, it determines the types of procurement that are relevant for hospitals. So here, I would just like to point out that it's not just about procuring cybersecurity products or services, it's about procuring anything with cybersecurity implications in the hospital environment, including non-IT stuff like professional services. An example here is, what if a hospital contracts some external contractor to do something that involves handling patient data, that involves operating a system? How do you minimize the risk of, let's say, human error that may result in a service outage? In the next slide, you will see the other taxonomy that we use in this work, which is the threat taxonomy. Here, it's about actually linking different types of procurement with specific threats. So when you purchase a medical device, for instance, you might be more interested in system failures, whereas if you procure professional services, the focus will shift more on the human error side, for example. Finally, we come up with a set of good practices. In the first slide, you will see the set of organizational practices, and I will not go into the details of each individual good practice here, but I would just like to highlight that these good practices cover anything from preparing for procurement by conducting, let's say, an appropriate risk assessment, or ensuring that all relevant stakeholders in the hospital are involved in providing specifications, most notably the IT department, which is typically, let's say, the owner of the cybersecurity function in the hospital. But it also includes things like providing training to staff. It makes no sense to have a very, very secure, let's say, a product that has a lot of security features if the staff is not trained to use them properly. It kind of defeats the whole purpose. Of course, in the next slide, you will see that we also propose some, let's say, technical good practices. Here we go more into details related to, for instance, specific technical features of products that are being procured and so on. But we also cover some elements that are very important from a life cycle perspective, primarily related to incident management. So let's say that you've purchased a product. Is the contractor, is the supplier involved in incident management, in vulnerability disclosure, in patching this device? These are all elements that are very, very important in the life cycle of of any such product, and have traditionally been, let's say, a very significant challenge for healthcare organizations when it comes to managing their ICT environment. Finally, if we can draw some conclusions from this work that we've done, we can say that already we have, let's say, the development and maturation of the EU policy and regulatory framework, with some policies and regulations that sort of create a framework for this for the entire procurement process. But it is still important to note that procurement should go way beyond the technical specifications of the RFP, that involving the staff, particularly in terms of awareness raising and training, is key in ensuring that cybersecurity objectives are met, and that cybersecurity should be a consideration for the entire life cycle of any product or service, including, and I would say primarily so, in post-procurement. So after you've purchased something, make sure that enough attention is being paid to ensure that cybersecurity objectives keep being met until the decommissioning of the product or service. This report, both in PDF format as well as an online tool, is available on ENISA's website, and I would encourage you to go through and try to understand a bit more the details and nuances of this of ENISA's proposals. And with that, I would give the floor back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Tanos. That's very important messages there. I do encourage as well everyone to visit the ENISA website and look at all of the tools and the good practice guides that they have available. This is very important. It's a really good opportunity to get a better understanding of the of what's at stake. So there are many aspects, as Tanos was pointing out. So let me just share my slide and introduce our next expert, who is Filippo Azzali from PROGEA, which is the Joint Commission International, and he's going to talk about the certification, hospital certification perspective. So thank you, Filippo. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Dr. Sabina Magalini and Engineer Pasquale Mari for inviting me and the University, Catholic University of Rome and Hospital Gemelli in order to sharing with you our experience. I'm a physician. My specialty is hygiene and preventive medicine, and PROGEA is the Italian partner of the Joint Commission International. I had the opportunity to work with PROGEA and JCI since the beginning of the experience in Italy almost 20 years ago. I guess all of you know Joint Commission International. Just a few words. Next slide, please. Joint Commission International is the Italian branch of the Joint Commission that started at the beginning of the last century to improve quality and patient safety in the US. At the beginning of the 90s, they provide services all around the world, believing that accreditation and certification helps in improving quality and patient safety. If you consider the situation up to now, next slides, Joint Commissions worked with almost 100 in almost 100 countries, and the primary source is the website where you can find if an organization is JCI accredited. We have almost 1,000 accredited organizations all around the world. As an international accreditation non-for-profit independent organization, is accredited by the International Society for Quality in Healthcare. Coming to the topic, and I thank you for the discussion and the discussion we will do today. In the JCI standard, the focus on the management of information has been since the beginning. So now we have the 7th edition of the standard, the international standard for hospital and academic medical center. They are effective since the beginning of this year, and the focus is on the individual, the responsible for IT. It has to be identified by leadership it has to be a qualified person that has the goal to oversee the health technology system in the hospital, in the organization. Another important point, the standard set give suggestions, and organization have to discuss issues and discuss together such suggestions, such points, such topic. Another point is education and training on staff. On, as Thanos said before, on information technology system, information security, cyber security, and the use of information systems. Another point, another suggestion, methodology suggestion is an assessment of the risk done periodically. JCI says at least annually, but just in order to assess the risk, to set priority, and in order to improve. Next slide, please. If we consider that information technology, IT, electronic medical record, and the electronic data in the last period, the use of this tool has increased all around the world, there are risks related to safety and security. Copying past and the use of template, autofill system is a matter of safety, patient safety, so medical possible wrong information given to the patient, give to other colleagues. But the use, we know that the use of mobile devices for exchanging, in order to exchange information, imaging, emailing, providing orders is a matter of security and safety. So organizations have to focus on this kind of point, and to give, to write down policy and procedure in order to possibly reduce the risk. And we have also another issues is the downtime. So they could be planned or unplanned. And so the organization have to test periodically, at least annually, the response of this kind of situation the organization can face. So another point, I finish my presentation, is the collaborative process between leadership, IT person, and staff. So it has to be a discussion involving these three levels. So the hospital leadership direction, the IT staff, IT person, IT staff, and the staff. So we have to try to to work together in order to improve the information technology system, including cybersecurity, in order to improve this kind of important topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Filippo. Very important points also raised there about also the fact that we need an organization-wide approach to cybersecurity training and awareness. I will now introduce our next expert, and just bear with me while I open up the slides. So the next expert is Matteo Montesi, who is CIO of the Fondazione Don Ginocchi in Italy. This is a not-for-profit organization that supports the most vulnerable sectors in society. So let me just, here we go. So the floor is yours, Matteo. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. A special greeting to Dottoressa Magalini and Pasquale Mari, and to all other colleagues. And my experience in terms of security goes now in my actual role in the foundation, which is present, is a no-profit but private organization. Was not this experience, but the precedent experience in the Lazio region. I lead the ICT, logistic operation, and IT security, and now I would like to show you the actual state of the art and some open issue for the Italian National Cyberspace Security Plan. Next slide, please. And so a brief show about the milestone and timeline, some organizational model in which the Italian guideline, which are the Italian guideline core directives, and some open issue. So straight to some open issue that I think that should be very interesting. And next slide. So Italy has a plan. We already define some core and essential service operator, which are, of course, healthcare, transport, and other core essential services. And on the other side, there are the digital service providers, which are cloud operation and so on. So the adoption of the NIS goes through a group of supporting IT security department, which goes to the institution, so called the principal ministries, the Department of Information Security. One Italian agency that is the core, the AGID, is an agency that rules public and certificate public entities like hospital, public hospital. And here there is the first issue because there is a separation between public and private institution and a different law in terms of different region. So this is one of the open issue at the moment. When I was in the Lazio region, I try to join at least the private and the public. But this is another point that we will show that we will see later, because, for example, the Incidents and Compromise Detection Center, the CERTs, were joined. First, they were separated. There was one center for one response team for the private and one for the public. And these last year, they were joined in one single point of contact where institutions and companies can send incident, IOC, and other stuff. The national legislation was revised, and the agency, the AGD, has developed and updated a 3-year plan relating to all the activities that the public institution should adopt in terms of IT security. So, for example, they rule the data center, the standard and then the process to migrate to the data center, and other important operational guidelines. The guidelines are present in the National Action Plan, model, standard, guidelines, and a 3-year IT roadmap. Next slide. Okay, thank you. So this is the timeline. As I told you, there are a strained collaboration with the other European entities. There was already a plan in 2 years earlier, the NIS directive, and there was a further adoption and update of the Italian law about this organization and this legislation. And the last significant action is the creation of the CSIRT, which is, as I told you, the unique point of contact for CTI platform and IOC. So at the moment, we have some issues in this new entity because they were organizing all the process and interface between the IT system, regional and national wide, of course. And next slide, please. So this is what should the healthcare institution do. Security organizational with models, management system, and a continuous process of risk analysis, as I have seen, as we have seen from the other presentation for Filippo and Attanos. And of course, sending reports to the IOC to the central CERT platform. The role of EGID is defining the national development IT, certify the national supplier, providing these essential services, and offer, of course, support. One of the best actual support that AGID is providing is a free risk assessment platform where all the hospital can enter and make their own risk analysis. So it's the best solution because AGID is the entity that released the certificate. So given a tool, a free risk analysis assessment tool, and of course has the role of the owner of the certification, accelerate all the process in terms of course, providing asset and mapping asset in the national system. Okay, next slide. Some actual issues. Already, all the region doesn't have an asset management tool or a configuration management database at the regional level. The process of the risk analysis and management are still fragmented. We have some problems in terms of the role between national procurement guideline and local regional procurement guidelines. We have different way to buy and to make provide services and IT asset, and this is a problem. There are some issue with the regional response team and national response team. Each region has his own organization, his own department, and at the moment they engage the way on in the incident management chain. The engage between CERT and CSIRT, the national and the regional, are not so much well defined. As I told you, difference in synergies between public and private, because they are very separated in terms of rules, role, and so on. And another issue that these days are coming up, and I think that the actual government will solve, is the creation of a new national cyber agency that will lead all other activities separated from the intelligence part, which has a different role, a different way of act, and different legislation. So I think that that's all, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Matteo. That's very interesting there, all of the different regional differences and the fragmentation that we still need to deal with. I'm sure we'll make headway. I'm now going to pass the floor to our last expert, who is Matteo Merialdo, and he's the coordinator of ECHO, and he's going to be talking to us today about the European Cyber Competence Network pilot. So thank you very much, Matteo. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Stephanie. Can you hear me? Does it work?
Yes, yes, fine, thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me here. I'm Temerialdo. I'm Deputy Business Unit Manager in my company, REA Group. We're mainly involved in space security and space operations. And I'm also a technical project manager for the PANACEA project. So in this presentation, very brief, because we need to move on with the workshop, I'm going to present one important initiative from the European Commission in relationship to the creation of this cyber competence network. Next slide, please. So in 2019, yeah, thanks. Okay, not sure, okay. So in 2019, the European Commission founded 4 called pilot projects in order to pilot the future European Cybersecurity Competence Network, which is now a reality which is being built in these days after a decision from the European Parliament at the end of 2020 and the establishment of a Center for the European Cybersecurity Competence Network in Bucharest. So in 2019, the Commission funded 4 projects with quite a large amount of funding, and those 4 projects has the task to pilot this network of center of competencies. I'm personally the technical coordinator of the ECO project, composed 35 partners from 16 member states, but in general, the coverage of the 4 pilot projects is European-wide, and not only from the European Union, but also some other associates, UK, Ukraine, and the East Europe. In terms of topics, we are covering quite a wide spectrum of cybersecurity topics. So it's not only about creating the network, but also developing technologies, cyber ranges, threat intelligence, information sharing, training and education, capacity building, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So as you can see, there is quite a wide European coverage. I also forgot Israel and Turkey, which are represented by some partners. Next slide, please. So what we do, I already introduced that before, but basically the idea is to pull together Europe's cybersecurity expertise. One of the things that the Commission realized a few years ago is the fact that we have a lot of cybersecurity knowledge in Europe, but it's very scattered among the member states, the nations, etc. So the goal of these projects is really to pull together and to create a network that can work and can also drive the industry and the investment from the governments. In order to foster the collaboration among those 4 pilot projects, we also created a set of focus groups, for example, on education, where also ENISA is involved, cyber ranges, road mapping, etc. The idea is really to pull together even more the 4 pilot projects in order to generate new knowledge and to establish the first pillars for the network of center of competencies, which the Commission is establishing right now. As I was saying, in Bucharest, that was a decision at the end of 2020, and this year is the year where the Commission is really establishing the network. And of course, those 4 pilot projects already piloted the network and are going to provide the first organization that will join the network itself. Next slide. So why it is important? Of course, it is important because Europe is searching strategic autonomy in cybersecurity aspects. It's searching, of course, throughout ENISA, which is the main agency for cybersecurity in Europe, but also needs to search from the bottom up, meaning from organization, creating a network in order to strive towards the digital single market, but also putting Europe on a leading position. Since, as I said, we have a lot of knowledge, but also is very scattered. So projects like the pilot projects are really fostering this knowledge and also are collaborating with the hundreds of other European Horizon 2020 and then in the future Horizon Europe and Digital Europe projects, like, for example, PANACEA. The goal of the future of the network that the Commission is building will also be to channel funds for research throughout the Horizon Europe program and the Digital Europe program. So also from a funding perspective, the future network is going to be extremely important. Next slide. That's very briefly, we are covering in the 4 pilot projects all the critical sectors, from communication to space to energy. Next slide. in different flavors between the different projects, but we are covering quite well. And we are covering many cybersecurity topics, as I was referring before. Next slide. So, United we stand, that's one of the motto of the European Union, of course, so it's quite important, and that's what we really believe throughout the 4 pilot projects. And in total, as I was saying, we have 174 partners from 31 countries, so it's a very wide network of organization. And the idea is that with the end of the pilot projects, which is going to happen between the end of this year and the beginning of 2022, we will have sufficient material to really pilot and to really start the network of competence centers promoted by the European Union. And I think it's my last slide, if you move it. Thanks a lot. For any information. Yeah, for any information, those are some contact points from Concordia, ECO, SPART, and CyberSec for Europe. But we also have a common website where we collect all the information and events, etc. So feel free to reach out, and also to reach out to the direct single projects for any collaboration and interest. Thanks.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Matteo. Sorry about the slides. This is very sensitive. So now we'll move on to our interactive discussion with the panelists. So we'll bring all 4 panelists back. And we are running a little bit behind, but let's try and concentrate on what we think are some of the main issues at stake. You know, we've talked about fragmentation, diverse approaches. And I would like to ask each of you where you think the main barriers to mainstream adoption of cybersecurity in healthcare lie. And I think we'll start with Thanos, and then we'll move to Filippo, Matteo Montesi, and then Matteo Marialdo.
This is a very good question. Now, from our point of view, we have identified some traditional long-standing challenges when it comes to cybersecurity in the healthcare sector. But if I had to pick one, I would say that it is, let's say, lack of awareness that permeates healthcare organizations. So this lack of awareness, in our point of view, goes from top to bottom in most cases. So at the top management level, it seems that cyber risk is, let's say there is an imperfect assessment and understanding of cybersecurity risk, which is best exemplified by the fact that the healthcare sector consistently ranks, I would say, below average when it comes to cybersecurity spending as a percentage of the IT budget compared to other sectors, even though the healthcare sector is arguably the most targeted and most impacted sector from cybersecurity incidents. But this lack of awareness, I would say, does not stop at the top management level. It actually goes from top to bottom, because in many cases we see that, for instance, medical staff perceive cybersecurity controls as a sort of an obstacle to doing their day-to-day job, which is actually patient safety and saving patients' lives, it's not an unreasonable way to look at it, but it goes to show that we don't think healthcare organizations have a proper understanding of cybersecurity as an enabler for this whole digital transformation of healthcare, but cybersecurity is viewed more as a compliance requirement, a cost that has no direct return of investment, but in no case as something that's, let's say, important to prioritize in safeguarding the sector. So I would say lack of awareness.
Thank you very much, Thanos. I like that one, cybersecurity is an enabler. Filippo, what would be your take on the barriers?
I would say the cybersecurity or IT system is not only a problem of IT person and IT staff. It's an organizational problem, hospital problem, organizational problem. So, and has to involve everybody. So I think the barrier is we don't see a multidisciplinary approach. So leadership, IT staff person and staff.
Yeah, thanks very much, and also a very important point there. Matteo Montesi, what would be your take on the barriers?
Yes, I think that we already have standard legislation and the law is already done. I think that an asset management in regional or in enterprise should be very important, is very important. The procurement phase is very important, even in public, than that in private, big structures, the procurement. And I will link the risk analysis with the budget, the process of the annual budget of the structure that already is not done in every structure. Of course, the awareness will reduce the surface of the attack, of course, possible attack. So procurement and asset management, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. The other, Matteo, what would be your main barrier to widespread adoption?
Well, I would identify definitely awareness at all levels in healthcare organization. So really from the doctors, nurses, up to the management layer. And I think it's something really missing. I mean, it's slowly improving and projects like PANACEA are doing quite a good work on this aspect, but we are far from an ideal situation, to be honest, in most of the European countries. And the other aspect is a little bit more technological and can be linked to what Matteo was saying before, is supply risk management. So since hospitals are at the end of the day complex system with very complex supply chain organization to run the hospital at the end of the day, improve the risk management on the supply chain, I think it's going to be extremely important, but that's for all the critical sectors, from space to energy to maritime, and it's something where I know the Commission is investing quite a lot of money, but I think it needs to be tailored then to each single sector, including healthcare.
Thank you very much. And could I ask each of you to give us a take-home message in terms of a call to action to overcome these barriers? So we'll start again with Tanis. We'll go in the same order as last time. You know, like a sort of a take-home message that for the participants and the community at large. What would be your action? What would be your primary action?
I think in terms of concrete actions, a lot of steps in the right direction have been taken. So we have a significant development of at least the EU policy and regulatory framework. We see that the industry is becoming more active with the proliferation of relevant standards. We see R&D activities that are tackling this this topic. So I think already we have a lot of pieces in place, and the more concrete guidance we can give to hospitals on how to address individual challenges, anything from procurement to risk assessment to asset management, any concrete guidance or specific support measures like, for instance, tools that hospitals can use to support certain activities, this can all be to the benefit of health organizations. And above all, I think that at some point, the message needs to be very clear that cybersecurity should be viewed as an enabler for the further digital transformation of the healthcare sector.
Thank you very much, Tanis. Filippo, what would be your take-home message?
As I said before, I think IT staff, IT person, data protection officer, so on, has to make leadership and staff understand that the risk, understand the risk, and so the importance to have commitment on that, and in order to conduct and document and a risk assessment in order to set priorities. So the organization can improve, understand the risk in order to improve. And I think the leadership commitment is absolutely important.
Thank you very much. And Matteo, what would be yours?
Yes, I will say that we do not separate privacy, security, and IT quality. There are a unique process and make budget with a clear risk analysis and with a 3-year plan. If I would, to all the IT people, a short message. Do not separate privacy, security, and quality of the IT. They are the same. And bring home a budget based on risk analysis. Is the only way.
Okay. Thank you very much, Matteo. Such a super message. And the other, Matteo Merialdo, if you could give us your take-home message.
Well, I completely agree with Matteo. I mean, these steps should be taken. I mean, really important. Based on risk analysis, get the budget, enforce the security measures at all levels, human, organizational, and technical level. That definitely, but that can only come if there is, of course, from the top to the bottom, reserve funds and some kind of a push towards awareness, but then also the single healthcare organization should start organizing. I was talking about awareness, that's why I'm mentioning that. Start really pushing on the cybersecurity issue to all the personnel, because otherwise we will be still lacking that aspect, which in general in every risk assessment of an healthcare organization, I can imagine, is coming out quite as a huge risk if people are sharing passwords or they have no awareness on what they are doing and why they are doing, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen, very much indeed. You've been a super panel of experts and left us with some really powerful messages, so thanks for that. We'll now move on, and I will stop sharing because I'm going to pass the floor to my colleague Rita, because now we are going to walk you through the PANACEA Toolkit as an integrated solution for cybersecurity in healthcare. This was through a series of videos, of various duration. So we're going to start with the dynamic risk management platform. So Rita, I think we're ready for the first video. We've been talking a lot this morning about the role of risk management. This is our proposed solution to deal with all of the threats in a very dynamic landscape. There we go, it's coming. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good morning. I am Silvia Bonomi. I am an assistant professor at Sapienza University of Rome. And together with my colleague Simone Lenti, we are going to introduce you to the PANACEA Dynamic Risk Management Platform. The platform has been thought with a clear objective in mind, and the objective is supporting a cybersecurity operator in handling the cyber risk management process. This is because cyber risk management is a complex and time-consuming task, especially in large-scale organizations like healthcare and hospital institutions, as those we are targeting in the project. The main sources of complexity are given by having a large attack surface due to hundreds of devices that are composing the IT infrastructure, including also medical devices, and the thousands of vulnerabilities that are affecting those devices. Another relevant source of complexity is due to the fact that in the healthcare domain there is a huge interaction between human beings and devices, and most of the time human beings are not technical staff that is well trained about security, but humans are typically represented by medical staff. And last but not least, there is also a problem related to the identification of the critical assets of the system that is clear to technical people, but it's less clear to the analyst that needs to analyze the risk. The tool is offering a platform to assist security operators in the computation and the assessment of the risk. And in particular, if we consider the classical 5-step approach for assessing and evaluating the risk, the RMP will assist the security operator in the step 2, risk identification, by providing a visual information about vulnerabilities affecting the system and how they can be aggregated to compose multidimensional attack paths. It will support the security operator during step 3 and 4, risk analysis and risk evaluation, by implementing an automatic logic for quantitative risk estimation. And finally, it will assist the security operator in step 5, that is the risk treatment, by suggesting both technical and non-technical mitigation actions that can be deployed into the monitored system in order to reduce the level of the risk. The system has been implemented and tested into an emulation environment. And basically, we are currently running experiments in an extended scenario. The first emulation environment is the one that you can see on the left of the screen, that currently represent one of the laboratory made available by Fondazione Policlinico Gemelli, while the one represented on the right is an extended version of the scenario that is still including the original one, but emulates the fact that this laboratory is then connected to other structure and can be also attacked from the outside. I leave the floor to my colleague Simone, that we will drive to a demonstration of the system.
Good afternoon, I am Simone Lenti, and I'll show you a quick tour of the visual analytics environment of the DRMP platform. The security operator logins in the visual analytics environment, and in the home page, he can view summary information about the distribution of vulnerabilities in all the snapshots computed by the platform. He can select one of these snapshots. Here we selected the last one. And now the home page is updated with the results of the default risk analysis computed for that snapshot that we briefly present later. Using the different views of the environment, different analyses can be performed. In the attack graph view, all the possible vulnerability exploits between the entities are represented. The size of the nodes is proportional to the number of exploits involving them, the red portion to the exploits targeted to the entity, and the green one proportional to the exploits outgoing from it. Inspecting a node, it is possible to analyze the vulnerabilities that affect it. In the bottom of the view, summary information about all the vulnerabilities are presented. The encoding of the graph can be updated to make tailored analysis on specific nodes of the network. In this example, we select again our medical device, and we now can analyze all the exploits that involve them. The risk analysis view allows to perform custom risk analysis. The first step is the selection of the targets of the analysis in the dependency graph. For example, here we select the report lookup business function, and we decide also to add another business function, for example, test validation. We can customize the impact, or we can move to the selection of the sources. Here we have to select all the possible sources of the attack. For example, we notice that there are a lot of possible exploits outgoing from an internal attacker, and we decide also to add one of these workstations as a possible source of attack. We can specify the roles, or we can modify the probability that the node is a source. Then we can provide a name to our query, and we can execute it. The security operator can even load previous computed queries. For example, he can inspect the default query computed by the platform for this snapshot, and he can see all the impacts on all the business entities selected by this query. For example, here urgent analysis and test execution have the higher risk levels, but cannot be impacted by naive attackers, while the others have lower risk levels, but can be impacted even by a naive attacker. On the attack graph, all the computed paths are visible, highlighting in red the targets of the attack. Here, these two medical devices, and in green, the sources of the attacks are highlighted. On the bottom, the mitigation action proposed by the system to face this analysis are presented and projected to the graph.
To conclude on the dynamic risk management platform, it is important to say that the software is in validation status now. We are refining the last details for the PANACEA project and validating in a complex environment like the one that you can see here in this slide. The dynamic risk management platform is going to be re-engineered by RIA in order to add it as a product within its portfolio, and is going to be offered probably with licenses, so yearly license with maintenance, installation on premise, or installation on the cloud and connection directly to the network to be monitored, or it can be offered as an assessment service. So una tantum, it's installed, is deployed, perform one or two iterations of risk analysis, including the suggestion on the treatment side and the mitigation actions, and then is undeployed. Those are the two models that we are envisioning right now.
Thank you. That was our dynamic risk management platform and the proposed service delivery model. We'll now move on to our tool for secure information sharing. So thank you, Rita. Here it comes.
Welcome to the presentation of the Secure Information Sharing Platform, or CISP. CISP addresses an important problem for healthcare organization: transfer of information between the same organization in different premises, between multiple organizations, and on the same nation or cross-border. Information should be transferred in a secure way and, of course, in a timing fashion. That usually doesn't happen. A healthcare organization transfer data by using non-secure means and non-GDPR compliant means, fax, email, messaging, or even by exchanging physical media. CISP enabled this secure information sharing of any type of data from medical images to discharge reports, etc., within the same organization or within multiple organizations, the same nation or cross-border, fully GDPR compliant, throughout a secure exchange channel, including strong end-to-end encryption, encryption of databases, and so forth. It's based on a previous agreement, of course, between the different healthcare organizations. CISP allows a very fine-grained and customizable data model and the data access control, so it's possible to customize the type of data that are transferred and also to anonymize part of the data that may need to be anonymized. And of course, data visibility via hierarchical groups is extremely important and is very well addressed. The data model is customizable, so it's possible also to change the type of data and the facet that those data are using in order to be transferred. And there is a full interface, including warnings, notifications, which enables a much more user-friendly type of interaction. The deployment model is hybrid. It can be fully centralized or fully peer-to-peer, or an hybrid version of the two with clusters of federations, for example. It's also integrated with identity management platform of
developed within PANACEA, and uses for authentication can use a single sign-on in order to be integrated in a seamless way within the information system of an healthcare organization. On the next, a demo of the secure information sharing platform.
Welcome to this CISP demonstration. I'm going to start the demo by logging in as a doctor from FPG. This takes me to the dashboard view. On the left, we can see the different functions that we have available with the different dashboards. Dashboards can be organized to show the information that I need. To demonstrate the main capability of CISP, we are going to imagine that the dialysis patient needs to travel to Greece from Italy. During his vacation, he needs to have medical attention. Therefore, we need to transmit his parameters to the facility in Greece. CISP allows us to extend and configure what kind of information we record in different templates. I'm going to create a new record based on the dialysis template. As you can see, the form changes, and I'm now entering the information needed for the template. On the right side of the application, you can see a participant list. This allows us to configure the visibility for this record. I can assign a handler, but I can also assign a group. So in this case, I'm going to assign the group of doctors to have access to this record. Each record is always in a specific state once it's created. We can see the workflow here. It is specific to this template type and can be configured in order to align with what the business needs. You can also restrict the different transitions to a set of rules. I just changed the state to be in triage. If we have more information inside the system that we want to reference, we can create references. For instance, if we have a patient summary or something. Here I'm searching for the data I have about John and linking this up to this information. If we have any attachments, we can also assign this to the record, for instance, medical images or other files that we are keeping about the patient. Finally, we have the comment section, which allows us to write different notes about the patient. And on the right side of that, you can also see the history window, which serves as an audit record for what has been modified on this, at what point in time and by who, and what was changed. In order to share this information with an external organization, I will enable the sharing. Fields in blue are shared. You can see that a certain part of this record is already shared. But then we can also configure on an attribute level what attributes we also want to share. This allows us to not send the entire set of information we have. Maybe we have some internal fields, so we are keeping some data that we do not want to share with the other healthcare organization. On the right, in the participant list, we can also now see that we have a constituents and a shared with field. Healthcare organizations are ordered into different constituents, which is a grouping of different healthcare organizations with some kind of pre-agreement about sharing data between each other. Here I'm selecting the FPG, 7 Healthcare Region of Crete. And then I also need to assign which organization inside this constituents I'm sharing with. So now I'm going to share this with the General Hospital directly. Then we have a warning, which is configurable as well, which will allow us to ensure that patient consent has been signed. Finally, we can also write notes between different healthcare organizations. So here I'm just going to inform about an upcoming vacation of John and send that as information to the General Hospital directly. Now I'm going to switch over to the other server where General Hospital Curriculum is installed. and signed in as a doctor on their side. Now we can see that I have 2 new notifications. So one ticket was created and then later updated. And this is only the information that was shared with us. But before we can work on this information, we need to assign the participants inside our organization. So I'm going to choose the doctors for visibility on this one as well. In order to support cross-border requests, we have a feature which allows us to map a record into another template type. We call this the clone feature. And the clone feature basically allows us to take an internal template and map it to some kind of common understanding. So in this case, it doesn't make sense, but you can see that I'm taking the dialysis assistance request and turning it into a magnetic resonance image. You can see the different fields that we have available and what kind of mapping I want to do of these fields. And then we can share the clone ticket as normal. Thank you for watching the demonstration of the CISP.
So the Secure Information Sharing Platform is part of our current portfolio of security products in RIA, and is in advanced validation status. It's going to be offered with licenses, so the organization can install one more or more different instances of the application and then directly access to it from multiple premises, for example. Or it can be now offered as a service, so it's hosted in a public or private cloud, and then it's accessed in a multi-tenant way by different organizations. So it's completely customizable. Thanks a lot.
So that was our tool for sharing information securely. We'll now move on to our identity management platform. So here it comes.
Welcome to the Identity Management Platform presentation. We are going to present now the human-to-machine authentication, which is actually about access control. So you all know what access control is. Here we are talking about logical access control, which means to all the systems that are linked to the IT system of the hospital. So you are using it a number of times per day, and they are everywhere. So at the point of care terminal, for instance, but also on your workstation, on the radiology equipment, or whatever. So today, probably the solution you use is very likely to be based on login and password and relying on Windows. Now, what is the current situation? The current situation is that credentials are written on post-it, and very often the credentials are used for a machine and not for a person. They are not corresponding to any actual users. They are linked to the boss of the department, for instance, or maybe the assistant. And it's not very convenient. So on some terminals, authentication is even disabled. So why this situation? You know that good password management requires that passwords are long, are containing special characters, and are changed very often. Therefore, it cannot be 1, 2, 3, 4. They are difficult to remember. Also, in healthcare, people have very important thing to do, and they are not so much concerned with security. They prefer to have other activities. And typing passwords, when they contain special character and you need to look at the letter one by one, is time consuming. What we have learned with that is that if we put something for security in place, it's not going to be used unless it's very easy to use. Otherwise, workarounds are going to be found. So now let's have a look at the video. Thanks a lot for your attention. If you have questions, please do not hesitate. We are here to listen.
That was our identity management. We're now turning our attention to our security by design framework with a short video explaining what it means, and then the example of two tools. One is security design support platform, and the other one is a compliance support design tool.
COVID-19 has pushed the healthcare sector towards an escalating digitalization and interconnection. Acquisition of new devices and software, such as remote monitoring devices, telemedicine platforms, and still better, telehealth applications, will represent a challenge for vulnerable hospital IT systems and for patient privacy and safety. Cybersecurity of these systems and their interaction with our legacy structures is more essential than ever. Security by design utilization, when we procure new systems and devices, is probably the most important building block for the future of patient care.
Due to lack of cyber awareness within the healthcare sector, our response is the Security by Design framework, in order to overcome the design limitation of medical devices and healthcare software solutions, which currently don't specifically or would include the security engineering aspects regarding the cyber risks. The main concept of Security by Design framework is to make systems free of vulnerabilities and impervious to attacks as possible through different cybersecurity measures that should be integrated into the design process, so that the devices will be designed secure from the foundations. Indeed, Security by Design approach follows different steps, such as the context definition, the relevant standard identification, the standards mapping, gap analysis and extraction, the conformity assessment, and the risk assessment.
In PANACEA, the risk assessment is covered by a dedicated secure design support platform developed by RIA, while the conformity assessment, for which continuous evidence collection and audit performing are essential, is supported by the compliance support tool developed by RINA. These two technological solutions compose the Security by Design framework and will be explored in the next videos.
The compliance support tool is a powerful instrument to support the quality assurance process during the whole life cycle of a medical device or system. It enables the client to put in place an assessment audit of the process, supporting health devices or systems providers and quality responsible, ensuring compliance to current standards in the health sector. It also allows a flexible configuration and management of the standards that can be grouped in templates to fit the needs of the users. The compliance support tool provides the user with checklists fed from predefined ISO referenced templates. It allows to collect all the records needed to assess the compliance, such as documents, images, or notes from interviews, and to easily associate them as evidences to the checklists. An intuitive summary report page shows useful information with tables and charts to communicate results, such as compliance coverage over system requirements or processes, and tracing over different sessions or trend over time. At every phase of the auditing activity, a notepad integrated in the report page is conceived to collect comments and indications to easy information tracing and allow aware decisions to improve the results obtained from the conformity assessment. The target users that can benefit from this solution are medical device manufacturers, healthcare application providers, and hospitals. We foresee 3 different applicable service delivery models. The first one is the assessment service, in which the compliance support tool is used to perform a specific compliance assessment of a medical device or healthcare software application. The second one is the advisory service. Using the Security by Design framework methodology and the compliance support tool, RINA can provide advice to a medical device manufacturer or software application provider during the development and the design of their product, and also can provide advice to the hospitals during the deployment of a new medical device or software application. Finally, the capability setup service plus licensing compliance support tool. In this case, RINA provides an advisory service for the implementation of the Security by Design framework methodology and a compliance support tool license to the medical device manufacturer or hospitals, comprehensive of training, releases and content updates. And in this case, the stakeholder will be able to use autonomously the Security by Design framework and the compliance support tool.
Healthcare is embracing digitization. It's a revolution that presents immense opportunity, but also brings new risks. With thousands, even millions of moving parts and people needing to communicate and coordinate, healthcare is uniquely complex and dynamic. Arguably, no sector stands to benefit more from the seamless integration of technologies and sharing of data. But every element of a complex system, including medical devices, presents a potential hazard, a weak spot that cybercriminals will seek out and try to exploit. The complexity we seek to conquer with digitization could be its undoing. That's why security in healthcare information systems and medical devices is fundamental and needs to be designed in from the very beginning. European projects such as PANACEA have given RARE the opportunity to apply our experience from the space sector into healthcare. With our Secure Design Support Platform, we provide a powerful new tool that lets users create more secure, complex systems while using security by design principles. It helps designers perform security risk assessments for complex systems during the different phases of the engineering lifecycle, automatically calculating the risk level of each asset based on the expert's choices. The platform also gives system architects a clear overview of the security envelope of the system, enabling a better tuning of security requirements and a proper management of the cyber risks. Underpinning this is a deep understanding of the challenges the healthcare sector faces. There are three main areas of vulnerability. The first is the product. Millions of devices in hospitals, laboratories, pharmaceutical companies, doctor surgeries. Then comes the process. How do these devices connect to each other? Last, but definitely not least, the people. Are they logging in and out correctly? And how strong are their passwords? The Secure Design Support Platform lets users click and drag to build the system or medical device they want. All the capability they need is there, but in the background, maximizing ease of use. The platform interacts with system and software requirements and design elements and easily assesses threats, vulnerabilities, and risks, categorizing them with color identifiers, red to green. System designers don't have to worry about every possible connection or weak side of the system they are building. This tool identifies them by highlighting major risks and providing the means to reduce them by introducing tailored security controls. The tool itself is well protected. Confidential information is guarded through role-based access, letting key players communicate securely, while also storing project information and assets so design histories can be traced and checked. The Secure Design Support Platform simplifies complexity. Building or joining complex systems together becomes a more manageable task, despite the many moving parts. Above all, it creates confidence that no job is too big and that the end results will always be secure. For more information, please contact info@raregroup.com. www.raregroup.com.
The Secure Design Support Tool is a part of the current RIA security product portfolio,
and is currently used in multiple activities for risk analysis and security by design for complex systems in healthcare, defense, and space sectors. We are currently offering it with a license, generally yearly license with maintenance and announcements included. And we are also offering it as part of general assessment advisory services, for example, for security by design and risk analysis. For any information, you can contact www.regroup.com.
And so that was our approach to security by design with two dedicated tools. We'll now look at resilience, governance, and financial viability. We've been talking a lot about budgets.
This presentation is about the security governance models and decision support tools developed in the scope of the PANACEA project. In a general context, organizations are adopting cybersecurity governance models to manage cyber risks as effectively as possible. One of the main issues faced by the healthcare organizations is the lack of specific tools able to provide decision makers with concrete and actionable recommendations in order to evaluate the cybersecurity management system of the healthcare organization, create a specific IT security entity to govern the cybersecurity, and evaluate the cybersecurity return on investment. At this scope, two main tools have been designed, developed, and pre-tested in specific healthcare contexts. From one side, the PANACEA Resilience Governance Model, able to cover the first two issues. It is composed by two independent but strongly related modules that are the Healthcare Cybersecurity Governance Tool and the Healthcare Cybersecurity Organization Structure Model. From the other side, the PANACEA Financial Viability Multidimensional Model, able to solve the third mentioned issue, which is composed by ESMS measurement indexes and by a specific cybersecurity return on investment. So going more into detail of the first model and starting from the Healthcare Cybersecurity Governance Tool, what we can say is that the main purpose of the tool is to evaluate the overall information security management system of a healthcare organization. That is a standard system for the cybersecurity management. The HCG tool is based on the main European and national reference security standards that are highlighted in this slide. Thanks to this aspect, the tool can identify the level of gaps of the SMS with respect to the different cybersecurity standards tailored to security aspects of the healthcare domain. The HGC tool allows to identify the dedicated mitigated actions to be carried out in order to build or improve the ISMS, acting as a fundamental tool to support management decisions. The output of the tool as a graphic interface to better understand the results. Moving then to the Healthcare Cybersecurity Organization model. The main purpose of the model is to manage, deploy, and improve the cybersecurity governance system of the healthcare organizations. The model is made up a set of guidelines for designing a specific IT security organizational entity. This model allows to identify specific roles and responsibilities for governing cybersecurity. Moreover, the main concept of the IT security entity modeling is to map roles and responsibilities necessary to govern, manage, and implement cybersecurity across the organization. In particular, the application workflow consists in answering to following main questions for each ISMS security process related. Who, what, where, and how must, can, should this specific cybersecurity issue be managed? The outcome of this application workflow led us to design the IT security entity. Finally, focusing on the financial multidimensional viability model, what we can say is that the model expands the outcomes of the RGT tool by adding an economic dimension to the ISMS maturity assessment. In fact, its main purpose is to evaluate the return on investment in the main field of cybersecurity. First of all, it has been approached a map of the investment needed to reach the maximum maturity level of the organization's information security management system. Therefore, ISMS maturity level is directly linked to each security process and related systems through adimensional indexes, such as the ISMS maturity level growth and the ISMS economic effort. The definition of the mentioned indexes allowed us to outline the formulation of the cyber ROI related to a specific investment scenario, which has been defined as their ratio. In this way, decision makers can have the capability to assess the cybersecurity actions, even thanks to the economic financial dimension of the cyber ROI index associated to different possible action scenarios that the RGT tool helps to define. To conclude, the tool and the model, which have been designed, developed, and pre-tested, can help organizations in order to evaluate the cybersecurity governance system, realize an innovative IT security structure entity complying with the significant standards, but also with the particular reality, define the set of actions to put in place at the main aim of increasing the compliance needs of the organization, and prioritize cybersecurity investment through the definition of the cybersecurity ROI. Finally, with specific regards to the service delivery model, they can help and standardize a typical consulting service in the specific healthcare domain related to security governance issues. Thanks for the attention.
Right, so we'll now look at how PANACEA is trying to tackle the big challenge of secure behaviour with our secure behaviour nudging tool.
Hello, my name is Professor Lynn Coventry from Northumbria University. Today I would like to introduce you to the Secure Behaviour Nudging Toolkit. The aim of the toolkit is to provide tools to identify ways in which staffs work around cybersecurity, the underlying reasons for the adoption of these workarounds, ways to change these behaviours if the workaround reduces cybersecurity, and ways to evaluate if that nudge has been successful. Firstly, it is important to acknowledge that employee behaviour can undermine any technical security controls. Attackers are well aware of this, and rather than spending hours trying to break through the technology defences, they are targeting users to let them in. You might ask yourself why there is a problem when the security policy tells employees how they are expected to behave. Unfortunately, just because staff know what they should do doesn't mean they will. I have mentioned nudging. Nudging is a way to encourage people to behave in a certain way through changes to the environment in which the behaviour is expected. Good nudges are timely, that is, they are delivered at a time when a person should be enacting that behaviour. Nudges may look simple, but they have been shown to be effective. For example, a pair of eyes watching you can lead to more honest behaviour. A red or green card can incentivise clear desk behaviour, and a proximity detector which flashes and vibrates can remind you to log out. So what is a Secure Behaviour Nudging Toolkit? It is a set of tools that help an organisation to identify and prioritise the insecure behaviours occurring in their workplace, identify how and why these behaviours occur, identify and design appropriate interventions, including nudges, and evaluate these interventions' effectiveness on an ongoing basis. Our toolkit contains 6 tools which help people to implement a process of continual behavioural improvement. The first tool is to identify the underlying attitude towards cybersecurity. This is a survey which covers different attitudes and also assesses access to different devices and data. The second tool outlines an approach to identify workarounds of current policies. This is a series of questions to form part of a discussion group. Firstly, looking at the behaviours in the workplace, and secondly, specifically asking about the importance and achievability of each behaviour listed in the security policy. Where achievability is low, then the workaround used for this behaviour can be explored within the workshop. From these tools, the behaviours can then be prioritised, and we can start to look at how each prioritised behaviour is being influenced. This tool, for instance, allows an organisation to list the behaviours expected from staff on yellow stickies as listed in their policies. These can be assessed for importance and also achievability. As the staff work together to rate how achievable they think a behaviour is, they can start to explain the barriers to that behaviour and how they work around it. The use of this tool can be complemented with workshops discussing the behaviours in the workplace and asking how a task is typically completed, and also with observations of behaviours in the workplace. The next stage is to prioritise the most risky behaviours and identify the most suitable intervention for each of these behaviours. Once a behaviour has been identified, then we can work with staff to understand more about how that behaviour has come about. Just say from this, we prioritise sharing passwords with colleagues as a behaviour that is carried out and discuss when asked about the policy, do not share passwords. Now we can look at the influences of that behaviour. This can be carried out in a workshop by presenting participants with cards of influencers gathered from theories of behaviour and asking if they occur in the workplace. Here are some examples of the influencers of password sharing. You can see that there is a positive attitude towards this behaviour, and people do not think they have the authority to change this in the workplace. Rather, they feel it is expected of them from senior staff and that it is a common behaviour. The next step is to look at how to influence the behaviour to change and how it can be nudged. Firstly, the team should work together to identify as many nudges as possible. Then the nudges should be evaluated to decide on the most feasible and potentially effective before developing and evaluating a prototype nudge. A tool we use for this is nicknamed Mindspace. This tool pulls together many different influencers from different theories. It provides another way to frame questions to explore the problem space. So, for example, if we were trying to improve the strength of passwords, there are a number of ways that could try to nudge that behaviour. So, for example, we could use a password strength meter, which shows how strong a password is as it is created or entered. Once the team have identified a list of potential nudges, we provide worksheets to help decide which nudge to develop. This includes guiding the user through evaluation of potential nudges based on some factors. These are the criteria we have currently included: technological feasibility, time and ease of implementation, disruption to work processes, whether or not a policy change is required, the financial cost of developing the nudge, the expected effectiveness of the nudge, how sustainable and generalizable the nudge is. Here are 3 nudges that we have designed using the toolkit and which were piloted across 3 health organisations. A poster campaign to raise awareness of the need to log out when leaving a workstation, badges to increase social awareness of who is conforming or not, and a bit of humour to increase the salience of the danger of using USBs without disabling them. The last step is to pilot, then roll out the nudge and evaluate if it is successful. Ideally, the behaviour would be measured directly, but this is not always possible, and we may need to rely on observation and self-reporting. It is important to run a pilot before full development of an intervention to ensure the nudge doesn't backfire. This does not need exact metrics, but involves a qualitative evaluation of whether or not the nudges would work and if people would find them acceptable. Take our badges example. In the workshop, people thought disincentives would be a good idea, but when we initially prototyped the badges and sent them out for review, there was some initial pushback and fear that people would not accept the negative framing. Lastly, it is important to treat nudge development as a cyclic process where the effectiveness needs to be continually assessed and new nudges developed as necessary.
That was our secure behaviour nudging toolkit, and we'll move on to now our last tool, which is on education and learning.
A secretary in the EU was found guilty and fined a large sum of money for inappropriately accessing the database and extracting confidential and personal data on a local celebrity who had recently undergone a medical procedure. This was then made public in the national media. Some data is deliberately misused, but it is often ignorance of the potential consequences that results in poor cybersecurity. The PANACEA Secure Behaviour Education and Learning Package has therefore been designed to highlight the sources of cybersecurity dangers and to address the direct link in healthcare organisations between secure cyber-related behaviours and practices and the health and well-being of patients, regardless of circumstances, processes or procedures. Designed and developed using a systematic approach by a team of highly qualified and experienced developers, the holistic training intervention is based on a thorough analysis of the current situation in the 3 partner HCOs acquired through workshops and surveys. It combines proven pedagogical methods and modern digital media to appeal to as broad a range of learners as possible. The learning aim is universal and is not limited to any particular target audience, use case, or scenario. Having spent the short time necessary to experience the tool, it is anticipated that all individuals working in, with, or for HCOs will acknowledge their role in adopting secure cybersecurity-related behaviours because of the very clear link between patient care, patient well-being, even after treatment has ended. The learning package stands totally independent of the organisation structure, governance arrangements, formal cybersecurity roles and responsibilities, processes and procedures. It highlights to all that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility and that everyone is accountable for their behaviour. It promotes behavioural change by personalising the consequences of inappropriate cybersecurity behaviour to the learner, the learner's patients and the HCO itself. The learning package has been designed to be used as many times as required by the user. It has considered the diversity of the target audience and the broad range of potential users. Therefore, it contains minimal written or spoken words, relying on strong and recognizable imagery to depict the scenarios, focusing on 4 identified behaviors. They are use of insecure portable storage devices, insecure passwords and poor password management, insecure shared access to digital devices, and lack of attention when dealing with unusual communications. Delivery is via a video with a duration of less than 20 minutes. It is universal in format, MP4, and accessible from PC, laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. The end user simply needs to make the video accessible on their local area network, probably as part of their learning management system, and provide their staff, regardless of employment grade or employment status, with the time and equipment to watch it. The supplied evaluation plan guides the end user organizations through consideration of the whole range of factors involved in changing current behaviors, including learner capability, learner opportunity, and motivation to change, particularly if there is interference from the presence of inappropriate policies, processes, and procedures, historical or conflicting cultural practices, and the lack of recognition and reward for secure behavior.
So with that, we come to the end of our toolkit presentation. We'll now move on to the interactive discussion, where it is my pleasure to introduce Pasquale Mari from the Gemelli Hospital. He'll be giving us an overview of the integrated use of the PANACEA Toolkit and potential services that could support its rollout to market. So, Pasquale, the floor is yours. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. I share my screen.
Yes.
Okay, let me.
It's coming. Thank you, Pasquale. Thanks very much. And then we'll also, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we'll be launching some polls shortly after these presentations. Thank you, Pasquale.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes?
Perfectly, yes. Thank you, Pasquale.
Okay, thank you. Let me start from what we have seen until now. You have seen in this full set of tools that the PANACEA project has produced. Here there is a resume. So you have seen that we have 4 technical, say, dynamic risk assessment, the CISP for information sharing, the identification two-factor biometric tool, then we have the security by design tool, and then we have 3 non-technical tools that cover different aspects. Let's say organizationals, and this SBNT deals with the nudging. This one deals with the education. You have seen the education pills just a moment ago. And then there is the RG with cybersecurity governance. Now, all these pieces can work independently one each other, but they can also work together. In this slide, you can see that they can be installed in a hospital, for instance, one by one, and then they can be used together, connected one each other, but also used in a process, meaning that they can be used in sequence in order to get information on the situation of the organization with regard to the cybersecurity, and to solve also the problems. Also, of integrated use of the tools are provided here. Here there are 8 use cases where you can see how they can be combined, the tools, in order to cope with these use cases. For instance, a typical situation is the procurement to cope with frequent and deployment of new technology. The DRMP allows to understand whether the new thing is impacting on the vulnerability of the network. The SBDF will check whether the new tool, the new thing, the new technology copes with the security by design principles. IMP checks whether the access to the new technology can be made more secure. SBNT deals with impact on the workplace of the new technology, and mainly on the staff. So if the new technology is creating problems in security that involve the staff, then the nudging part can be used. Also, the training can be used, and also organizational aspects can be put in place in order to be sure that all the procedures are updated and so on. Here you see other examples of cases, integrated use cases. For instance, and they can come out from different situations. For instance, the compliance with the EU directive, and ask you to decide the cybersecurity investments. In this case, you can use these 3 tools. In the case of COVID, there have been many situations where the use of PANACEA would have been important. Consider, for instance, the number 7 here, for secure telemedicine. In this case, what happens is that you have to test whether the telemedicine is introducing cybersecurity problems. So the tools can be used together. There are many situations there the integrated use is beneficial. And this is an example of how it can be used all together. Here you see the actors. This is a classical RASI matrix that is used to describe activities. And you see along this is the case where you want to cope with frequent selection of on deployment of new technology. This was the first use case. No? In this case, you have many activities. Here are the actors that do it. And you see where each tool can be used to do things and to help in ensuring cybersecurity. Building on this, we think that once the project will finish, I mean at the end of this year, there is the possibility for them to go on and offer, to do a joint offering based on the availability of this tool. Why? Because we have built two assets. The first asset are the tools. So we have an integrated toolkit that we can use as a whole. Behind this tool, there are actors, there are providers, meaning the partners of the consortium. The consortium is made up of many partners, and each one of them has its property. It is a collection of multidisciplinary complementary domains of expertise. These are useful, can be used to deliver a multidisciplinary service. If you consider the partners, we have an insurance company, AON, expert in risk governance, RINA in certification and training, UNAN, the University of Northumbria, expert in nudging human factors and so on, psychology applied to the human-machine interaction. REA is a cyber software developer. University of Rome, expert in cyber research with their Department of Electronics. IDEMIA is a multinational dealing with identification authentication. And then again, RINA and REA are expert in security by design. And we have also other actors. We have a fourth research center based in Crete. They know very well clinical systems, but also they are a research center in technology. iSprint is another small company dealing expert in clinical trial systems, design of them, and also machine-to-machine integration with the correct identification of the interface. And then we have a Trusted that is expert in dissemination, communication, and technological communication and marketing, and Stellar that can provide assistance on regulatory framework. How can we plan to put together the consortium? The business model that we want to build is based on the fact that we have a consortium partners that can sign a commercial agreement. So we can build an entity, PANACEA Healthcare Cybersecurity Advisory Services. And the idea is that the mission of this entity is to jointly exploit the expertise and the tools developed during the PANACEA project. And the value proposition for the clients, meaning hospitals mainly and healthcare organizations, is to provide assessment, certification, and advisory services based on the partners' multidisciplinary capability. And this software is done to healthcare organizations operating in the cybersecurity domain. And the delivery will be done by the partners. And we will use also the tool in an integrated manner. We plan to deliver at least 5 services, and here are listed. So in-depth assessment means that we deliver not, let's say, just a network check of vulnerability, but we go deeper. Then we have a wide spectrum compliance check allows it to do certification against a variety of regulatory references. Risk management capacity building helps the organization build up a capability to manage the risk in terms of cybersecurity, staff awareness raising, and assistance to the integrated use of PANACEA Toolkit. Let me go first one of this. This is the most complete, if you want. It is the in-depth assessment. This I describe only as Service A because it gives you the flavor of what we want to offer. In this case, what we offer is something that goes on, is a service that is delivered by our team. And what we do is an assessment of vulnerabilities of the hospital, looking at many things, looking at the systems, medical devices, and stuff. And in particular, what we do maturity of the governance process, and we use the RGT tool. Maturity of the governance organization in the hospital. We also we analyze the quality of the procurement process with regard to cybersecurity, for instance, PANACEA indications. We analyze the vulnerabilities of network and of the related human layer, and here we use the RMP in conjunction with the tool designed by, the nudging tool designed by the University of Northumbria. We analyze also the staff vulnerability to phishing. We analyze also the strength of the identification and authentication measures. And in the end, we also can check the cybersecurity of the medical devices. As you see, it is a complete check, not just a class, let's say phishing only or network only check, but it goes through all the elements, system, staff, and also the medical device that are a peculiar thing of the healthcare network world. The output is a report with the assessment and also a set of recommendations. The benefit is that the client gets a complete and in-depth picture of its compliance level and vulnerabilities, allowing to a consistent and optimal portfolio of interventions. So this is one of the services. And we have the option here. We will share with you this slide so you can, which are the elements of our offering. And now I hope I have been clear. And now there are some questions for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pasquale. If you can keep slide 11 in the background, it would also help with our polling and avoid,
yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's go with then the first poll. Which is actually poll 3. So we're asking you here of which service options you feel are most useful in reducing the overall vulnerabilities to cyber attacks in healthcare organizations. This is a multiple choice, so you can select one or more of the options. Oh, so there's our poll. So thank you everybody for responding to it. So which service would you feel is more useful for tackling vulnerability in healthcare organizations? Thank you. We kindly ask you to keep voting. If we can have a few more, and then in the next 10-20 seconds, we can share the results. Coming now. Just wait a little bit longer. Okay, another one's just coming. I'm just going to wait 5 more seconds, Pasquale, and then we'll share.
Okay.
It would be nice to have another voter. Yep, there they are. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll end the polling. Okay, and share the results. So quite a mixed response there. So we'll have to see how many when we analyze the results in more detail. Okay, we'll now move on to the next poll, which is about how, if one or more services are important, why do you think they are important? Again, this is a multiple choice question. So is it complying with regulations, preparing for certification, as we learned about from Filippo this morning from PANACEA? Is it planning cybersecurity investments? And that's certainly been a topic this morning. Is it about raising awareness in top management or raising awareness in staff? Or is it a combination of these? And this is a multiple choice. sorry, this is the poll here, so you can vote now. Poll, yeah, votes are coming in, so kindly ask the people in the audience. This is very important to collect your inputs. It would be very useful as we move on to the next step of the project. Wait a little bit longer. Some more votes are coming in. A few more. Good to have a couple more coming in. That would be very useful for us. Okay, I'll stop the poll and share the results. So the top score is raising awareness in top management. Okay, now launch the next poll, which is about the service value of the PANACEA healthcare services. So to what extent, so the question is, to what extent is having a multidisciplinary team a distinctive advantage? So you have 3 options there. You can start voting anytime. If we get a few more, yeah, we're getting more votes this time, responding more quickly. I'll just wait a little bit longer so participants have a few more seconds to vote. Thank you. Another one's just come in. Oh, quite a few more have come in. Okay, we'll stop this now at 50 seconds. So here's the results. Oh, unanimous. 100% said it's a strong advantage. Okay, so thank you. We'll move on to our next flash poll, which is to what extent is having a hospital as part of the team a distinctive advantage? Ladies and gentlemen, you can start voting now. Just wait a little bit longer. Okay. It's taking up to 40 seconds, and I'll end the polling now. Okay, again, unanimous, even though it's a small sample of participants, but that's fine. So we'll move on now to the next poll. And this one is about to what extent is using a variety of tools to support the advisory service a distinctive advantage? We have run over a little bit this morning, but I think we've done a great job in catching up. So well done, Pasquale. Okay, there's a slight difference of opinion this time. So let's keep voting for a little bit longer. And I am going to stop polling in 3 seconds. So here we go. So yes, it's not quite unanimous that it's a strong advantage, but it's still an advantage overall. So thank you, everybody. We've just had a few more polls to go, just a couple. So this is the next one, the last but one poll. Is the European context, e.g. the regulatory environment a distinctive advantage. You can start voting now. So last but one slide poll. I'll stop the polling in about 10 seconds or so. So if you do want to vote, please do so now. It's very much appreciated. Okay. I think that's it. So here's the result, more or less the same as the last poll. Okay, it's always an advantage, but not necessarily always a strong advantage. So now we'll move on to our very last poll, ladies and gentlemen. So this one is about the contract agreement. So which type of contract agreement or agreements are normally used for the services similar to the ones proposed by our PHCAS? So either you don't know, it's a subscription or a one-off service fee. Don't worry if it's a don't know. We've already tried this out with our expert committee as well a few weeks ago. In fact, this might be another area where we might need to raise a bit more awareness in the types of contracting and procurement, and that bearing in mind also that we have that very useful and insightful guide from PANACEA on the procurement that we learned about earlier on. Okay, I think I'll end the voting, and that's the last of our votes. So when it's not known, it would mostly be a subscription. I think we can stop now. So thank you so much, everybody, for voting. This is much appreciated. I will now close the vote. I will now just put a little placeholder slide with all of the toolkit snapshot on the screen and pass the floor to Dr. Sabina Magalini once again for a wrap up. Sabina, the floor is yours. If you'd like, I think a big thank you also is due to our expert panelists this morning, but Sabina, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. I thank you so much, all of you, also for the patience going through all this, this long, let's say,
Can't hear you, Sabina. Sabina, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, no worries.
Something not working here. No, I was saying I thank all of you for the experience that you brought to us, the old people and the new people. And I want to thank in particular also Matteo Montesi, who we must remember helped us write this project as well when we were there. So the opinion, the view that we have of adopting the cybersecurity in hospital that is coming from the grassroots is in great part also his. So, and one of the, let's say, the doubts that stays with me is this proposal that we have forwarded and shown you, how much it is precisely to be adopted. I mean, what I think is after 2 years of project, all the research that we have done, is if that somehow will be useful to someone. So this is a question that I leave to you. So if you have further feedback for us, we would be very, very happy with that. Thank you.
Yeah, we can leave the contact details in our follow-up message, and when we'll let you know when all the presentations and the recording will be available on PANACEA, www.panacearesearch.eu. I think, I can only echo your words, Sabina, personally. We'd very much welcome more feedback. from the community of stakeholders. And thank you to all of our partners for preparing all of the videos. Special thanks also to our expert panelists, Tanos from ENISA, Matteo Montesi from the Don Gnocchi Foundation in Italy, Matteo Marialdo from the ECHO Cyber Competence Network, and Filippo from Progea. Thank you all very much for being here with us today and for sharing your expertise and all of the very important work that you're doing. We hope to see you again in the near future. So thank you, Sabina. Thank you very much, Pasquale. Thank you to our participants today. Thank you for your feedback.